Here we are, James Stroud. How you doing? Rafael here from NLC2.
Hey,
Uh,
Rafael, thanks for having me on.
I've really been wanting to do this a long time, just because it just seems like every time we talk, it's around this hour, which is almost 1 a.m. right now. But not because of that, just because it always seems like I'm like, hey, James, you got a few minutes, and then we end up, spending 3 hours on a call. And I just feel like, man, calls like these, have to be shared. And I specifically, the amount of information and knowledge that you've been able to provide for me, the help. And I just said, man, I got to get James on a recorded call one of these days and share it with my friends online. So I'm glad you accepted to do this. Usually devs just don't want to be out there, want to be behind the scenes. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So all right, so I'm playing interviewer here, and I'm having a lot of fun. I've gotten a few interesting recorded calls, so this is getting to be a kind of a good hobby now these days. All right, so just the first obvious question is, what was that first moment when everything clicks? I totally remember mine. When everything, like the moment like when I understood blockchain, it's like boom. Just fireworks go off in your head, right? What was that moment like for you? Because I mean, you've been. Tell me, like, go back to, like, were you always a developer, a coder? What did you grow up being? I mean, how did you get to that point?
Well, I was interested in computers since I was a kid. Since they first came out, I remember I had I guess you could call her a girlfriend, like in grade school, and her dad he had like a TRS-80 or something,
Yes,
and
yes.
I made my first program in there, like print something, go to that statement. He showed me a couple of commands, and I was hooked. I knew computers were going to be the future at that moment, but I didn't really know how to capitalize on it, and I was really, because I was so young, I guess, but I was really fascinated by it, and strangely enough, I was so fascinated um, that I actually had pretty good computer skills and programming. I was programming machine language, in the eighth grade and stuff, and because I didn't really have a compiler available to me, but I would program anything I could on whatever I had available. And when came time to pick a major, this is gonna sound pretty strange, but this was in the 80s, and I was like, well, why would I be a computer scientist? Because like I'm already into it, and so I went into biology, and that career really wasn't for me.
Man,
I,
I'm
I
learning. I love these calls because you open up for the interviewer, and I didn't know this. So I could talk biology with you. I'm just saying, really, that's incredible.
yeah, I'm a trained biophysicist. I got my PhD
Whoa.
in biochemistry uh, at University of Colorado, and that's how I have a lot of my programming skills. But I did molecular biology as a major back before
Uh-huh.
that was even a thing, and because I thought biology was going to be the way of the future. And in a lot of ways, biomedical industry has really taken off. But
Yes.
I'm not a scientist. I mean, I never, that never worked for me. Like, here's how I describe a scientist. A scientist, you don't have to be the most brilliant person in the world, although there are plenty of brilliant scientists for sure. But if you get up every morning and you can't help but wonder what your experiment is going to reveal that day, then you're a
Man,
scientist.
now
I'm
people are understanding why I love just. All right, keep going. Yes,
No,
yes.
okay, here's a confession.
Oh
This
my
is
God.
interviews are
Scoop.
confessional. Don't tell any of my advisors. They'll probably never watch this. They're very busy because they're
No
smart.
problem. We'll keep it secret just to a few thousand people. No, go for it.
I never got up in the morning and said, "I wonder what my experiment is going to reveal." I mean, in a way, I did. When I did crystallography in where you saw the structures molecular structure, the big macromolecules, proteins. I was a protein DNA crystallographer, and I kind of had that feeling sometimes, and I did very well at that. It was very technical. It was problem solving. The finished product was visual. It worked for me. But outside of that, I don't know if I ever had this feeling. And I spent my career, strangely enough, because I was always kind of technically proficient, at kind of this is going to sound immodest, but it's true. You can't get around it. I was at the best places. And so although I wasn't one of the best, I was simply there because I was technically very good and I managed to, get in with these guys. But the very, very best of them are really smart, and they wake up every morning wanting to know what that experiment is. And my career actually progressed, and I actually became a professor on the faculty at UNM. But during that time, I could feel it the higher I got, the harder it was for me to be motivated, strangely enough. And so, yeah, I was really lucky blockchain came along, because if there's anything that motivates me, it's cryptography and the application thereof to it's payment processing. To a lot of people, that doesn't sound really fascinating.
God, I just like, I can't. I mean, what I'm saying and what I'm seeing here is that how lucky are we that you're a PhD in microbiology?
I was a PhD in I was a PhD in biochemistry. I
You went
specialized.
through all of that to find out you love blockchain. I just, hit blockchain and I said, I love blockchain. So I'm glad I avoided, but we've got like somebody, I knew you weren't, I knew you weren't like just a normal guy that just so like, yeah, I'm going to start doing blockchain. Cause after, when we start talking blockchain and code and I'm left here and you keep talking over here, I'm like, what planet is this guy from? Now I understand a little more.
Yeah, I feel like if Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever that is, hadn't invented Bitcoin, I would still kind of be a lost soul right now, because I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
Let's talk about Satoshi Nakamoto and the white paper and all that. Okay, I have like, all right. So there's some people, kind of like with the U.S. Constitution. There's the people that want to read it as exactly it was written, and then there's people that want to say, well, it's 300 years later. It has to have evolved this way, that way, the other way. I don't know. I mean, is it such a big deal to adhere like word for word with, Satoshi wrote? I mean, don't we think that things have evolved? Because some people want to adhere to it word for word. What's your take?
Okay, so well, technically, okay, so here's how I describe it. This is such a multifaceted question you just wrote. So you just asked. So I'll answer one of those facets. So when
Fasten the seatbelt.
when he wrote that white paper, there was no peer-to-peer currency out there. So what he designed was kind of like the ultimate conveyance for peer-to-peer currency. And so the way I do, I kind of speak in metaphors sometimes. The way I think about it is, let's say, you need to get to work and the car hasn't invented yet, and you sit down and you go, what's the ultimate car? What's going to get me to work the safest, right? Because blockchain is all about security. It starts with security. And just like, when you fly in an airplane, it starts with security. Your safety is our priority. It's the same thing with blockchain. Security, the blockchain is the most important thing. And so if you were going to travel to work, you would sit down and design the ultimate car. What would you make to get to work safely? A tank, probably, right? You would make a tank. And that would get you to work in wartime. It wouldn't get you there fast, but it would get you there, and it would be the most secure conveyance, for your personage to get you to work. But that's not the most practical method of transportation all the time. If everybody optimized for security, then everybody would take a tank to work. But this would, right? I mean, you would,
Right.
if you're like, what's the most important thing I could ever do, be secure, I'm gonna take a tank, you
Yeah.
know, but you can't take a tank. In fact, I commuted to work here in New Mexico, and I discovered you could buy a moped and under 50 cubic centimeters, and you could ride it without a license and park it at the bicycle racks, right? What could be less secure on the roadway? I mean, you're a sitting duck, right?
Right.
And
Right.
but it was a super practical method of conveyance to work, and it got me there door to door in 7 minutes. I mean, it was a beautiful commuting experience, but it was not secure. And so you have to look at what he did in context, and there's no precedent for a working prototype, and he was designing something that was gonna work and get you, he was designing that vehicle that got your money from A to B in the most secure fashion he could think of. And the problem he solved was this thing called the Byzantine generals problem. And the idea is, what is the best way to solve this problem? He invented proof of work. He invented the proof of work concept as it exists in Bitcoin, which is the first and leading cryptocurrency. And that is called that's called a consensus mechanism. Proof of work is a consensus mechanism, but it's when you get to the scale of Bitcoin, it's very secure, but it's not as fast as other consensus mechanisms, and other ones may be practical. And we've seen an explosion of different consensus mechanisms since that white paper. And in my opinion, if none of these other mechanisms and none of the other currencies that arise from those mechanisms, assuming distribution is fair in some way, if they don't have legitimacy as a currency, then Bitcoin doesn't have a legitimacy as a currency. So anyway, that's my big picture answer.
Let me go exactly to that point. You touched on that point. I don't think he envisioned the extreme size of and the mining wars, where you're going to have massive mining farms consuming massive electricity and basically a tug of war that can't be won. And then you'd be like, okay, you're going to consume as much power as a whole country, and each transaction is going to consume the power of what a 5-person family home does, and therefore all these other coins will be born. But he didn't think that was, I mean, he couldn't have thought that far ahead, right? So maybe it's not perfect.
Right. No. Proof of work. Okay, I'm probably going to get in trouble for even saying this because there's so many Bitcoin maximalists out there.
Oh my God, this is awesome. All right.
But proof of work is actually on on some level is not the most secure. It's terribly energy inefficient.
Right.
Although I don't really think that's as big of a problem. The energy inefficiency of proof of work, I don't think that's as big of a problem as most people think, because they optimize for the energy source. Those energy
Right.
sources are renewable.
Right.
They're hydroelectric. They're and stuff like that. So I don't
Good
think the
point.
biggest problem. The biggest problem with proof of work is, well, it is inefficient, but from a consensus perspective, if anybody can be a validator, which is the magic of Bitcoin, it's inclusive. Anybody can be a validator if they have the
Right.
mining power. What you have is a competition for that, and the blockchain itself has to reorganize around that competition. And those reorganization events are epitomize the inefficiency. So at some point, you'll have two chains, a fork, and you have to decide what is the legitimate fork. And Bitcoin does this with the proof of work. But if somebody adds if this chain is the winner, and then somebody adds to this chain and it overtakes this other chain and it becomes the winner, you have a state of non-finality. And that's the biggest problem of Bitcoin, is it's never final. You never know who the winner is. And other consensus algorithms besides proof of work try to solve this problem, and some do it more theoretically, rigorously than others. But anyway, that's the central problem with Bitcoin. And this problem permeates down to coins that are like Bitcoin that have this proof of work algorithm, but they don't have the same scale. And when you go down in scale, even though you can have a very valuable asset, like I forget the numbers now, but say you have a $200 million cap blockchain and it's secured by proof of work. In actuality, this has happened. I think it happened with I can't remember the coin. Gosh, if I say I'm going to get in trouble, but there was a coin out there and I can't remember what it was. And if I say I'll get in trouble, but it had a proof of work algorithm. It had a massive market cap and hundreds of millions of dollars. And one person just basically commandeered the chain using a combination of hashes, exploiting the particular mining algorithm. And anyway, it was a huge problem for this coin, and they double spent, or maybe they didn't double spend, but they certainly exploited the block reward mechanism. And I don't know if you remember, right when we did that big run in 2017, there were like 5 or 6 proof of work coins that all, I don't know if this was concerted. These all had like pretty high market caps by those days. They were like 25 million or something like that. All 5 of them got 51%ed. And if you look back in the record, you'll see that Bitrex dropped a few coins, all because they were proof of work coins. They got 51%ed. So proof of work is, to me, only secure in certain circumstances. It definitely has its merits, but I think it has a lot of problems that people sort of overlook because they only look at Bitcoin. And there was, if you want to be an originalist, white paper originalist.
Right, originalist. I get it.
Satoshi never said there couldn't be another coin. And so his proof of work, he never said that thou shalt not make another coin besides Bitcoin. But if proof of work can't work for a smaller coin, then it has this sort of fundamental flaw. And I am really sort of a believer in proof of stake, although I do recognize its theoretical compromises in the consensus mechanism. If you look at history, proof of stake coins have historically not been 51%ed like proof of work coins. Proof of work coins have this exploit happen to them, multiple times, many times in the short history of blockchain. Proof of stake, I cannot think of a coin with a non-broken proof of stake consensus that has been exploited by a 51% attack. And the reason, of course, is what all proof of stake proponents say, is that you're just going to have to make everybody rich to get that much stake.
Right. You can't. Right, because you'd have to buy up 51% of the thing. And that's what, suddenly it dawned on me, and, I'm going to kind of backtrack, and I want to kind of try to freeze that moment when, and we'll talk about the fork and how you helped us and what I went through and all that. Was very interesting. But one very interesting moment where you said, what? You have these many nodes? And then we did an analysis recently, and we've got 500 nodes, right? So I I put 500 units on a spreadsheet, and then it did a pie chart and said, well, that's what our network looks like. And you look at all the other massive coins, and everything that we've been talking about where we want the decentralization actually gets defeated by people going right back to those huge mining pools. Because what I'm saying is, every mining pool looks like a single computer to the blockchain, right? I mean, Litecoin has, 5 pizza slices, and it thinks that there's 5 super fast computers mining it, right?
Right. So a pool is a single
Yeah,
central point of failure. And even though you're collecting hashes from a bunch of people, that's one, entity, one whatever person, maybe in some cases, that is taking those hashes and submitting them to the network.
right.
And yeah, so it is as if you have 5 nodes validating the network. And you have when you say 500, I mean, I'm your viewers are probably going to be rolling their eyes, but guys, it's true, man. This NLC2 network is gigantic from a small cap
I
perspective.
remember your reaction when you said, "What? You're like a Dogecoin." I said, "Okay." I mean, so what did you mean by that? I mean, what did you say? Wait, you have 500 nodes? At first, we thought it was 200. Now we figure it out. It's 500.
Yeah, 500 is probably the lower end because you're not going to capture the full set. I can explain to the audience what your team is doing because they asked me I run a couple of seed nodes for you guys, and they just took a list of all the peers that all the seed nodes were seeing at that particular moment. So basically a snapshot in time. And then they got a unique list of IP addresses, not just not just adding up all of them from every node, but just making sure everyone is unique, and they come up with 500. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but nobody runs a node these days on a coin like NLC2 because it's only got a $2 million market cap in order to just, run a node and for fun. What they are doing is they're taking advantage of the staking, to keep up with the money supply, or else the money supply will leave them behind by inflation, not by a lot, because it's the max 4% per year for the whole chain.
Right.
But each one of these guys is validating the network because they're proof of stake. We don't know you can find out what the stake distribution is from the Explorer, but the point is that's probably 500 different individuals who are running nodes, more or less. I mean, some people could run more than one node, and they're probably most of them are validating the chain. That is a level of decentralization. Probably no limit coin that's probably rivaled only by the biggest proof of stake coins out there, and certainly by the biggest coins out there. And because there's only, even the biggest cap coins like EOS, you've only got 20 validators.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
And all these kind of coins, there's a few like EOS that run on the same mechanism. Lisk has 100 validators. That's more. And of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum, if you really look at the significant validators, it's just a handful
Right.
because of the hash distribution. And anyway, there's probably a bunch of smaller validators. But this would be an interesting question. And at this moment, I opine that that NLC2 would probably win this is if you were to look at the distribution of consensus power for Bitcoin. How does that look? It's 5 huge mining pools and a
Right.
bunch of guys like running USB sticks or something.
Right.
And they don't count. The USB stick guys don't add up to one mining pool by any stretch of the imagination. With NLC2, you can probably look at it, and even though the distribution is skewed in what is known as a Pareto distribution, which there's a few rich guys and a bunch of poor guys. That's how Pareto works. It's seen all over.
Right, Pareto 80/20, right? That's right.
Even though it probably has a distribution, I can almost guarantee the audience and anybody else that the distribution of NLC2 is flatter in terms of validation power.
Well, none of the company wallets stake, so we're not really adding coin to the circulation for any of the company wallets, and I've always said that, that was my position for that.
Oh yeah, that really does help secure the network.
Now,
to let everybody, the
okay.
masses.
All right, so I want to talk about stealth. So
Sure.
You, I mean, I looked at the chart and you launched this in 2014. That's like prehistoric, that's like prehistory in the world of Bitcoin, right? I mean, what were you doing back then, making coins? It's like, it was almost like people saw it as almost laughable.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. So back then, um, coins were there were lots of people launching coins to try to make a buck or something, but there were plenty of people who were launching coins for hobbies. um, I can rattle off a few coins. Like, well, one coin just got a pump on Binance, Grossel. I don't know how to say it. Gressel. If you're German, you're going to probably be hating me right now, but that coin is to, with people just mined it because they thought the mining algorithm that they're using was cool. There's coins like Philosopher's Stones. These coins were never launched to try to make anybody rich. As much as all the altcoin detractors think that every person who ever launched an altcoin wants to get a Lambo, a lot of people just thought coins were cool. And
right. It was
I
fun.
started, my first coin I ever tried to launch was Stealth, by myself. But I got on a project that I just thought, it was an interesting project. And the dev was one of these guys who just launched and left, and maybe he thought he was going to get a Lambo. And I helped out with that and learned a little bit about proof of stake with that. And then I just launched. Then a few months later, I'm like, I'm just going to launch my own coin. So Stealth is the first coin I launched. I consider it my baby. And I would just thought, the world, one of these days, people are going to wake up to the fact that privacy is important, and I always imagine Stealth to be a privacy coin, and it has privacy features in it right now. And the goal is to try to make it a really good privacy coin, fast and anonymous. But at the time, I was just like, I'm just going to launch this coin. And I had some guys who, I knew from that other project and around, and, they helped make a website and all that. And they mined it on the first hours. I didn't mine Stealth on the first hours. By the time I got around to mining it, the hashes were so high, I wasn't going to get any Stealth. I wasn't like some rich guy with a bunch of miners. I made it X13, whatever it was back then. That was the mining algorithm. And I rented a few hashes, but I didn't get any coins, and so I just bought all my coins off of Bitrex. And anyway, so I mean, the price was really low, so I was able to buy enough. But yeah, that Stealth was not launched to try to get a Lambo or become rich. It was just launched as a cool hobby coin, and I thought it was cool. I thought Stealth was a cool name for a coin.
It is.
Um, Black was a cool color for a
Now
coin.
that logo, wait, you had that logo like way back then, or you changed it?
The very first logo. Okay, so I was really into, the reason I like cryptocurrency is when I was a kid, I was really into cryptography, although I lacked any sort of mathematical skills, and still
Oh,
do, to understand cryptography in any sort of real way. Sorry, but we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I'm not really a math guy. I'm good enough, but not that good. And
when you
so
say that, okay, never. Go ahead.
and so when back in 2006, before Bitcoin was ever invented, way back before that, I was really into cryptography, and I saw this book by Bruce Schneier. He wrote it. It was called The Introduction to Modern Cryptography. It's like, man, I'm going to write that. I'm going to read that one day. And one problem with that was idea was it was $45 paper bound, and I was a student most of my life. And when I got to my postdoc, I saw that thing sitting on the shelf at the UCLA bookshelf for $15, and I was like, dude, I'm picking that up. And I read it cover to cover. And that's one of my I could go over to my library and pull it out. On the cover of that is like this kind of impressionistic. I say impressionistic instead of impressionist because impressionist is a distinct period of artistic
Should
history.
regular people read that book or
Uh,
not?
I think a regular person can muscle through it.
What's the name of it?
Introduction to Modern Cryptography by Bruce Schneier, Schnier. He's like the father of the cypherpunks or something, which is kind of hilarious that I never joined that whatever group because anyway, I just never got around. I thought it was like 4chan or something, like crazy people posting memes or something a long time ago, posting flame wars on a billboard or something. I didn't really know what it was at the time. But he happens to be the father of that, one of the fathers of that movement, with some other people that were actually involved in Bitcoin. But on that cover has this impressionistic picture of a stealth bomber. So when I came up with the name Stealth, believe it or not, it was this sort of homage to his work, being the original, really comprehensive book for the masses, you know, that outlines the principles of cryptography in a way we can sort of understand. So Stealth, the name came from that, and then the logo was a stealth bomber. And then this Sasha Palki, who works with me on stuff, he's like the co-dev, and we spend all our time trying to develop Stealth right now. He's very much a pacifist, you know, and he's German, and he's like, the first thing he did is change the logo, and he made that logo that's behind me here, and with the 6 points on it, it's a hexagonal themed. As a cryptographer, I recognize the symmetry there, and anyway, as a crystallographer, I recognize the symmetry. But anyway, that was his conceptualizing the original logo, and I thought it would look awesome, and we just kept it. So we ditched the stealth bomber and kept that, and it's stuck ever since. So I didn't design that logo; Sasha did.
But what I notice is that that's kind of like a preamble to EOS. I mean, were you guys before the EOS logo?
Dude, they ganked our logo. What can I say, man?
Hey, that's a pretty good flattery, you know, that imitation.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, theirs looks like some kind of satanic pentagram. And if there's any Satanists watching, I don't mean to disparage your belief system, but it looks like a satanic pentagram. And the only reason I say that with any sort of disparaging tone is because it looks like ours. They stole
Well, look, imitation is greatest form of flattery, so it's okay, and that's what, you know, blockchains essentially is just a bunch of clones of clones of clones. So, all right, so I want to understand more about stealth. So, it's something that you've kept up, and then, you know, I've been reading your posts, and they're extremely high level, essentially for probably coders or developers. Are you aware of that like it's very
Oh no,
hard to
yeah, no,
understand?
I'm not. I'm not delusional thinking that people should actually understand what I'm saying. What I wanted to do is I wanted to get okay. So we're developing quantum proof of stake. Really, I'm developing it because I'm the only developer. It's only got a $2 million cap or something like that. So hey, I'm the only
Actually, three.
developer.
You just popped a little bit, so you
Oh,
did.
nice.
Yeah, it's up to 3.
And so anyway, that's not high enough to where that's an embarrassing admission to say I'm the only developer. And so I wanted to get quantum proof of stake done, which was my concept for a new type of proof of stake that I can explain. And what I found, I worked on Breakout Coin as a hired hand. I was a hired, whoa.
That's your. Do you see?
Oh, okay. I was wondering what happened. You changed the screen. Okay, I get it. I can
Hey,
keep
I got
talking.
tricks up my sleeve too. You're not the only. So anyway, okay. So you're
Sure,
talking
sure.
about quantum proof of stake here, and what I
Yes.
wanted to do is try to interpret like one of your posts here and just try to make
Huh?
sense of it, right? So
Yes.
so sorry about that. I didn't
No,
mean
no,
to.
no. It's fine. Now I understand. I thought you had left, and I'm like, oh, okay. I got to get Rafael back here. But I see you were just bringing up a web page. Cool.
Yeah, I'm having a little fun here. So you're talking about quantum proof of stake. So explain to us, you know, exactly like what's going on here.
Okay. Oh, this was week one. Oh yeah. So this series. Oh, internal testnet week 1. So this series right here is what I decided is when I was working on Breakout Coin, I was in a Slack, and every day I would just kind of type up what I did that day. And I realized there was a sort of feedback mechanism of productivity where if I reported to the community what I had done every day, it would motivate me the next day to have something to report. And so rather than just spit out something, brief every day in a Slack, I decided every week I would cover what I had done that week. And if you want a powerful, motivator, if you're into self-help or something, summarize what you did that week in writing every single week. I mean, you will just fly through your task lists every week because you're like, man, I've got to get it. It's almost as if the means are coding and getting things to work, and the ends are this report you file for people. And here I'm just summarizing it. And the one thing is I didn't want to spend, I'm not writing a book, I'm writing some code. So I didn't spend a lot of time breaking it down for the masses, but I did make a journal as to what I did every single week here. And the only person who this really matters to in a way is me. And it,
I
like
know. I knew it.
if nobody else cares what I've written here, it's fine. The thing is that it is a true record of what I did every single week. And I started coding quantum proof of stake on December 1st. I was looking back through my Git Bitbucket repository, and it's not on GitHub. My private repository is on Bitbucket. I started on December 1st of 2018. And here we are only about 4.5 months later. And last night I made this video demoing the quantum proof of stake network with 2 nodes. They're minting blocks. One node's minting them. The other node is accepting them. It's the smallest possible network. And I demonstrated the actual functionality of quantum proof of stake. And so anyway, it's this kind of journaling thing is a massively powerful productivity tool. I'm sure if you to read self-help books, it's in there somewhere. But I kind of discovered it on Breakout, and there's 2 parts. There's starting and finishing. And starting is really hard to do. I came up with the concept of quantum proof of stake like about 2 years ago, and or more. And I didn't start actually coding it until the end of 2018. So it's gonna be a while to start. But once I got going, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep this this journal blog series going. I mean, I'm basically I'm not done because I need to work out the bug. I mean, there's a zillion bugs because it's new software.
So you're moving stealth from a mineable model to a proof of stake model, right? Is that what you're doing?
It is proof of stake right now. It originally started out as a proof of work because my philosophy at the time was the most fair way to distribute a coin is by proof of work.
Mm-hmm.
And we had by today's standards, it's a shockingly short proof of work period. By the 2014 standards, it was long enough. It was like 2 weeks or something. It really wasn't that long. But back then, if there was a coin and and stealth happened to be, people kind of latched onto it because the branding concept and everything, the name. It had everybody mining it. Everybody who mined anything was mining stealth at the time, from what I could tell. In the small altcoin community, so it got distributed pretty well. And as from those terms, then we went to proof of stake. It transitioned. It was built into the protocol. It went into proof of stake. So every coin has to be kind of mined out. If you pre-mine it,
right?
You mine some blocks and giving yourself some coins. If you have if you have a distribution like we had, it's like everybody mines it, and then it just goes to proof of stake because I've always thought that proof of stake was better for the economics of a coin, not just for the security. I've come to believe proof of stake is better for security. Sorry, Bitcoin maximalists.
Hey, I'm there.
But I also think it's better for the economics. And it causes people to hold the coin,
Right.
and does that sound like a bad thing, holding? Actually, I don't think so, because if you're holding, you're not speculating. And if people are speculating, right, isn't that the bad thing about coins, speculating? So if you're not holding, yeah, I mean, we can argue all these little
Right.
points,
Right.
but
Right.
when you talk to people, they're, you know, when they get angry, if you read the trolls on Reddit like I do, you know, we all have our guilty pleasures. You will see that when they get angry, when their faces get red in that troll on Reddit way, they always talk about speculation. That's what really makes them angry. So, you know, holding, if you're holding,
Well, it doesn't make them angry when the speculators push your price up, right? They only hate it when they sell. So, you know,
well,
when,
so, yeah.
right? So, wow, that's so explain to me then what quantum proof of stake, because we're proof of stake. So what does that exactly
Yeah.
mean, quantum proof of stake?
Yeah. So this is a shift from traditional proof of stake. Traditional proof of stake is a stake weighted lottery, is the best way um, to kind of express it. So say if you have more coins, you have a better chance of being the one to win this lottery to stake a block. And it's proportional to the number of coins you've had and how long you've had them, with some parameters in there that makes that not exactly true, but close enough. So that's also a competition. So proof of work is competitive in that this miner is competing with that one to find a block. Proof of stake is also competitive. That's one of the secrets of its security, is that it's a competitive lottery. And if you have more coins, you know, you have more influence over the network, which is fine, because you have more stake in it. You want it to do better, right? So that's all philosophically lines up. The problem is these competitive things go back to what I was talking about, where the chain has a propensity to fork, because in a competition you have a network that thinks you have a winner here, and a part of the network that thinks you have a winner there. That's a fork. Basically, they can't agree on who the winner is. All chains have a mechanism to resolve forks. Forks are built into the design. They're like, when I was a kid, I saw a roller coaster, and you know, it was swaying, and I happened to be lucky to be standing next to an engineer. Yeah, they're built to do that, because if they couldn't sway, it would be rigid and snap, right? So it's the same sort of design philosophy with blockchain. The ability to fork, and for those forks to resolve into a single chain, is part of the design, because it has to have this flexibility that, you know, the network may not be in perfect communication. So there's this sort of concept that is pioneered by BitShares, where people use their stake to vote on people who sign blocks. So this ends competition. You're competing for the votes. You're not competing for the blocks, because you have your competition and you sort out all the winning beforehand. But when it comes to signing blocks, everything's tight and efficient. And blocks on BitShares, I think, are 3 seconds. So every 3 seconds, you get a block in perfect synchronization. Here's a problem with that. If you don't have a perfect distribution algorithm, BitShares actually was mine, so it had a good distribution. But it could have been, there in mining is not the most fair way. There is no fairness in the world, unfortunately. That's not like that's not cynicism. That's just, you know, how it is. But if you don't have that perfect, you know, sort of distribution in this type of proof of stake, and they call it delegated proof of stake,
Right.
then insiders can, you know, control the network. They can exploit the money supply. They can exploit the reward system for minting blocks. And I found all that to be suboptimal. I didn't, and plus, you know, it becomes a political situation. Even if distribution is fair, if you are competing to be a block signer, you're competing for the favor of a person who controls stake. to me, that putting in that political component makes the system fragile in a sort of way. Although there has not been a lot of fragility observed in the BitShares network. It's intensely robust from what I can tell.
And
But
that's the whole first, that was the preamble to Steam and EOS, right, by Dan
right.
Larimer.
Now, yes, and so Steam and EOS arguably did not have fair distribution, and I'm not here to like beat up on any coin, but me and a lot of other people don't feel like those distributions were very fair. And I saw how Steam was distributed, and although I believe that's a wonderful project, I wanted to more of an intellectual sort of pursuit is figure out, well, what's some even more fair way to have block signers. And so I'm somewhat of a kind of a free market type personality, as most people are in blockchain. And I thought, well, what if you bought your rights to stake and bought your rights to sign blocks, just like proof of stake, but you had this system, much like the BitShare system, where the block signers followed a rigorous schedule, and so nobody had that system. Even though I had that idea a long time ago, usually if I have an idea, plenty of people have already had it. Even though I had that idea a long time ago, nobody ever implemented it. So I was like, probably because these other systems already existed, and so I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put it into stealth, and here's why this is a good thing to do with stealth. So here's a problem. Here's another problem as I see it with BitShares, even even Ethereum, EOS. A lot of coins, except for Bitcoin and coins that descend from Bitcoin or use that general design, is they use a account-based ledger. And if you have an account-based ledger, the fundamental problem with account-based ledger for privacy is you have to register an account. And if you register an account, you are never going to get around this account is going to send that money, going to send money to this account. You're always going to be able to make that connection because it's account-based. Now, Bitcoin has this design called UTXO, unspent transaction output. Okay, I wish they would have came up with something that sounded less nerdy than that, but it's like traveler's checks or bank checks. And the way you spend it is I give you a check, you take that check, you write 2 new checks and void, and sign the old check, making it not spendable. And the 2 new checks are so I can give you a check for 100. You can send a check to 50 and a check to yourself for change for 50. And when you sign that original 100 I gave you, that can't be spent again. That's the whole concept. That's a UTXO model right there. That's in stark contrast to an account-based ledger. Now the thing with those is they function like bearer instruments. UTXOs function like bearer instruments. They're not technically bearer instruments, but they function like bearer instruments. And they function because they're like that, they function like cash. And cash, as we know,
Completely anonymous, right?
cash can be completely anonymous. It is. People give crypto a hard time because it can be used for bad things. Cash is the winner for being used for bad
Well,
things.
they didn't ban cash, right? And it was used for anything, right?
Yeah.
So,
And so here with that, you can have cryptographic anonymity with using UTXOs, using the cash type bearer instrument type model we call UTXO. Yeah, I mean, I made a chain of logic there where you have checks are like bearer instruments, cash is like bearer instruments. That's the chain of logic. Technically, that logic is all real perfect. And with that, you can shuffle the cash cryptographically on a blockchain using ring signature, zero coin, zero cash. These are the 3 main cryptographically anonymous protocols out there. But you have to have a UTXO ledger. So here's where stealth quantum proof of stake is unique. is that we have these super fast block times based on a scheduled block signing algorithm, similar to what was conceived for bit shares. We have that, but the asset, the underlying asset that's getting transferred between parties, that is a UTXO cache-like asset. So it's a hybrid system, and this hybrid system allows super fast transactions of anonymous coins. And when we put the anonymity layer in, and the reason I haven't put it in is because I'm just going to put it in at the last possible minute. This stuff is still getting fleshed out. Anonymity is not perfect yet. They've found as recently as a couple of months ago, or a month, or even a few weeks, I can't remember. Zcash had a money supply exploit published
Really?
and fixed. Yeah. So this, and Zcoin has had multiple exploits, and I don't know about a year and a half ago, I think mid 2017, right before the giant Bitcoin pump. I was holding a ton of Bitcoin and sold like just barely into that pump, like a, whatever, we all do that, right? But
Oh,
but that giant Bitcoin pump correlated with Bitcoin actually addressing this money supply exploit for the ring signature system used by Bitcoin and Monero. And anyway, so that's the main reason. First of all, I'm not a cryptographer, so I'm not going to make a good anonymous cryptographic solution. And let's go one step further. Even the best cryptographers we know of haven't provably found the perfect anonymous solution yet. So the longer I wait to put that in, the safer the coin's going to be. And believe it or not, I share this value system that I believe Satoshi had, that security should be first on the blockchain. It should be the first concern. I should be able to confidently hold my money without the worry that somebody else is exploiting that money supply. And with anonymity, there's a lot there. It has proven to have a lot of places where the money supply can be exploited. But I am a realist, and I do recognize that, at some point I'm going to pick an anonymity solution and go with it, and, cast it into the wind and see, hope for the best. And when we do that, of course, we're going to follow whatever protocol. We're going to follow that protocol as closely. If there's any developments or any disclosures, we'll definitely be on top of that and implement whatever comes out, and try to have cryptographers on staff as well when we put that in. But anyway, that is not possible. That true cryptographic, anonymity is not possible without a UTXO system. And UTXO systems are traditionally slow, multiple minute blockchains, and they're not intensely scalable. But here we can have a UTXO system with the scalable, fast, 5-second confirmation blockchain. And I made a video just
wow.
yesterday showing that blocks were coming off at 5 seconds. I made a transaction, and
Wow.
those transactions were getting confirmed, and by the time I could switch tabs and type in a command to show that they were confirmed. So yeah, that's the vision. And I feel like I'm just yesterday, you scheduled this a few days ago, but coincidentally, just yesterday, which technically is the same day because it was about this time last night, I think. I got the first transactions going on that network, and it's moving. It's cool, man, that you have 5-second block times. There are faster blockchains, but the reason I came up with 5 seconds is the next time you pay with a credit card, at a chip reader,
Yeah.
the stripes are a little faster.
Yeah.
Put your chip reader in, start counting the seconds. It's gonna be 10 seconds before it tells you to remove your card.
That's right.
Pretty much minimum. I mean, usually it's a little bit more than that, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. So we've have that. And if people are going to the store and using their chips and their credit card and not raising a fuss, that means that's a good transaction time for them. And so why not? So we've halved it because it could easily be 1 second, but my opinion is it doesn't have to be 1 second. If it doesn't have to be 1 second, don't make it 1 second. I want to hit right there in that sweet spot for people. You know, if you send something, you want that confirmation in 5 seconds, and because that's what you're willing.
Well, because now, not every coin and not every blockchain has to just stride for massive amounts of transactions per second, right?
Right.
Each blockchain has its own different situation. So, I mean, if
Yeah.
you were to try to give me a quick, a summary of what you think the progression into EOS, because I mean, EOS seems to, it seems to be thriving.
Mhm.
Um, is it delivering? I mean, I see the dApps. I see that they're growing. I see more people working to put out dApps. Even though dApps are great and we're planning some, it's not, the end of the day, because the most important dApp is the coin itself, right? The decentralized application, the coin.
Mhm.
What's your take on the progression of that whole delegated proof of stake model? We talked about it. We had the NLOS discussion, and for people that follow us know about that, and that's really, James was really the one with the idea, and it was a great idea, and it's something that we're still gonna consider down the line. Is it delivering? Is EOS delivering the promise that we all
Wow.
expected?
Okay, so you know what? I don't follow EOS at all. So I don't. I mean, because I've had problems with the the whole setup there, the stake distribution, and I don't know where they are.
Well,
I
I
know there's a
remember
lot of.
the Constitution thing and all that you didn't like.
Yeah, yeah, that kind of turned me off on the project, that there was some sort of extra blockchain sort of constitution. I get it, but I don't like it. I get the idea, that it might
Okay.
be good, but
All right.
it
So,
doesn't appeal to me. But I think they're actually, they've got dApps, they've got coins and
yeah,
stuff, and in principle it should work. There's some economic problems with how they are managing the
the RAM, right?
virtual resources like RAM and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and yeah. So the idea behind the NLOS. I don't know if we want to go there, if you have plans for that in the future, but on
Well, it's
resource
an
management,
interesting discussion, certainly.
yeah, the way EOS does it is you buy RAM and you
Right.
own RAM permanently, and I think it's a flawed model. And the reason you own RAM permanently. The concept of permanence is there because it it permeates the need uh, for permanence on the blockchain. And which permanence? Well, the smart contract. And the philosophy there is nothing should be impermanent. No contract should ever be impermanent. Um, I think that's fundamentally a flawed uh, idea, because contracts expire. Um, you know, uh, Borders get redrawn. In the real world, there is no permanence in contracts. And if your dApp is not economically viable, who really cares if your contract is permanent or not? Get rid of that thing.
Right.
So the idea, and you can put it into, you don't have to keep it in RAM the whole time, right? You can
Right.
put a contract in cold. What do we use in the real world? Filing cabinets, right? You can put it on the files and folders of your hard drive. Those are a resource as well, but they're not as expensive as having
As
that
RAM.
contract on somebody's desk for reference at all times. And that's what being in RAM is all about, is immediate access to that contract. So the idea behind NLOS was that permanence is not requisite for a dApp platform. RAM and other resources can be rented rather than bought. And if you have a rental, economy, even though in the real world there's problems with that, this is blockchain we're talking about, right? Even
Yes.
even if we have a rental economy, in blockchain is probably going to be the most economically efficient way, because there's no reason to hoard a lease. You could try to lease something and try to get that lease every time. But what you're doing with that is, because those lease renew, you're going to be competing with people and driving the price up, and it's not going to be worth it. It is worth it for somebody to buy some RAM at 2 cents and hold it. Will it's still $2, right? If there's no ongoing cost to support that. In the real world, we have costs related to holding things like a house. You got to fix the plumbing a lot, at least on my houses.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about my houses, but I got to fix that plumbing a lot.
Believe me, we all are. I mean, that's my second job, all right? Believe me.
You in the house,
Honey, the bathroom. It's like,
in the
yes,
house, you're
ma'am.
going to be wet.
Yep.
But anyway, so yeah, in the real world, things amortize. They depreciate in value. That concept can work fine on a blockchain. Houses are not permanent structures, and anyway, so yeah, I haven't followed EOS because I just see so many flaws with it. I'm just kind of biased against it, so it's like I'm not interested in it. And I know that, in this world, we should keep an open mind for everything all the time, but we're also human. We're just human.
Okay, great. So, all right, so let's backtrack a little bit. Sorry to be taking so much of your time, but this is
Sure.
fascinating for me. So, and it'll be interesting for whoever watches it. So go back. I start seeing like somebody's buying. We list our coin. Also, we were pretty early, like 2.5 years ago, and it was really basically a coin for our sports platform. So we put the coin out, put it into the exchange, really didn't do an ICO, which at the end saved us and allowed us to become a true utility coin. But I start to see somebody's buying coin, right? Like, who would be buying this coin? That was you. And a few months later we met, and I realized who it was. And you end up being a very important holder on NLC2. And as we discussed the options of tokens and coins, the best option was recently that update, which you were the architect of that. And as much as I try to prepare myself, and we talked for months and so many hours, it was kind of a little comical, or because I understood everything. The only thing that I think I didn't understand was, in my mind, a fork was two paths, and that was it, A or B. And then, so when we forked, and you said, "Oh my God, there's 5 freaking forks," or whatever you said. I said, "What?" Could you I thought I was prepared, but some of those days were a little stressful. But you were so calm, because I guess it was a normal thing for you. But like, what is it that I didn't understand? I guess I didn't realize that it's not just A or B, right? The nodes they bunch up with each other, and until there's a clear winner, as you've described, that's when the fork can conclude. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have to have a clear winner. Sometimes it helps, to get involved in the chain, to kind of identify a winner. If you're like stealth, I had plenty of experience with stealth early on. I don't know what I did, but or the code base I used was just screwed up, and it forked a bunch of times. It was a huge disaster. So I got a little bit of experience at healing forks on
I
blockchains.
see.
And stealth had a bad one night. It was after launch, and it was just going straight up, in price. And I was going on vacation the next day, and it literally, when I got everything resolved, kind of, my wife was standing by the door, with our kids, like, let's get out of here, and I'm like, I'm typing commands. But yeah, so I got some experience doing that. But I don't know if how many of your viewers saw that. You were down on Bitrex for a long time, and they're probably thinking, well, what happened? How come y'all guys can't do a coin? Let me explain to them what happened. Okay, so No Limit, Rafael's organization that he uses, he runs that is behind the development of NLC2, they had 4 seed nodes or something. Okay, all of those seed nodes were updated. The exchange is updated, and in order to get a winner, the network has to find like it has to converge, and then sort of the topology of the network has to reorganize. But the nodes have to find a common point of information.
Right.
It is a fork, and a fork is a centralized sort of event. Here's the problem that we had that was like, Rafael would say, James, this happened. I'm like, there's no way this is happening. And then I would look and I'm like, what's wrong with your nodes? How come y'all guys can't run a node? I may not have put it that way, but that's what I was thinking. And then they're like, well, get on the nodes and see for yourself. And so they gave me the login, and every single node was maxed out with connections. 4 nodes at max 200 connections. I think that's what you had. Were all maxed out. So
Right.
new nodes couldn't come in. So the network could not get that original central point to get the information about who was winning the fork and all the staking. And people were still running different versions. If everybody could have connected to those nodes, we would have never had those problems. And so we had to bring not 4 at 200, we had to bring 12 nodes
12.
at about 300 connections up
Yes.
to
Yes.
support the network. Once we did that, and we made sure all these seed nodes, this was the magic to getting all that situation, to getting Bitrex online. We get all the seed nodes on what we identified was the best chain manually. What I do is I run a bunch of nodes, and I kind of get an inventory of all the chains and the forks out there. This is how you heal a fork if you're a dev. And then you go, oh, this one looks like it's got the most network stake on it. It's got the most nodes. It has the best chance of winning if I just kind of help it along. And so we set up, quickly we set up like 6 more nodes. So we got up to 10 nodes, and we got all those nodes on the same chain. And that's all it took. We didn't do anything special. We just made sure that there was actually this network that people could connect to find out who was the winner. And once that happened, it's not like we had any further intervention with that.
Keep
Go
telling.
for it. I'll just keep talking.
Yeah, my headset's dying, but I'm listening. Keep going.
Sure. So, so once we set up those seed nodes, we had 12 seed nodes that could kind of handle the capacity of the network. It was originally 12 seed nodes at 200, and we bumped it up
To 300, right.
300. I still need to bump up mine. I confess I haven't got around to that yet. But once that happened, the network was able to converge on a single chain. And once a proof of stake network, after an event like that, a forking event, that was a hard fork with people had to update their nodes and something.
Right.
After that, a proof of stake network as designed by Sunny King in Peercoin, those things really are robust, and they'll all converge on the same fork. And other than micro forks, that you never even see on the grand scheme of things, within the 2 or 3 confirmations of, most exchanges want like 10 confirmations or something.
Right.
Within
Some
that
20.
number, a micro fork is that's built into the protocol. As I mentioned, those are fine. They happen all the time. Other than those, a proof of stake network is just going to move along really, really nicely. And yeah, I run a no limit node, or I run a bunch now, like 3 or 4, and they're all on the same chain all the time.
Yeah.
So it runs perfectly. But yeah, that whole thing, the reason No Limit had so many problems during that fork is the network was so much bigger
Than what we all expected.
than anybody thought.
Yeah.
And your infrastructure for supporting that network, especially in time of a fork where it really is important,
Yes.
was not there.
Right.
But how could you, yeah, maybe if you had somebody who was really, into it, running stats all the time, would have known. But the typical person who's using a utility, who's operating a utility token, or supporting a utility token, I should say, and using it as an operating as an operating functionality for their larger business, they're not sitting there running stats all the time
No,
on the
no,
network. It's just not
no.
part of it. Now I can actually see the value of that, because these networks, I don't know that if they're all like this, but these networks can get large and you will never know it. But I pay attention to a lot of networks. I stake dozens of coins. I love crypto. I buy
Yeah,
coins. I stake them. I mean, it's just like a hobby, but I've never seen anything like No Limits, the breadth of its network. And I said at the time that it might be as big as Doge. Rafael calls it Doge, and I call it Dodge. So a little
yeah.
tomato thing. Um, I haven't seen it as I just estimate it's probably like Dodge. I don't really know for sure, but it's a big network. And
That's
what would be
awesome.
cool is to probably try to figure out what is the size of some of these other networks, and how many real nodes are working on. If I had to guess, Dodge is not going to have that many, because you have all these wallets. You probably can go on. A few years ago you couldn't do it, but now you can probably go on the Play Store or whatever and download a Dodge wallet where you don't need to run a full node. You can just do it on your phone.
Mm.
But so it's not going to have a big network of validators like that. I mean, I can't. Maybe Purecoin might have it, but it's certainly huge. And I would love to know the stats on all this. It's pretty crazy. And I know I'm going on about it, but I've been doing this since 2013, actually, not just 2014. Before that, I got into this. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen all these. I've mined coins. I've had far more, even more than I'm staking. I've had this many more nodes up running, mining, and all this stuff for all these years, and I've never quite seen anything like this. And to
You
me,
mean the size of No Limit Coin?
yeah, the size of your network. And to me, I mean, you're like, on one level, as somebody who owns a lot of coin, I'm like, wow, this should be great for the value of the coin. But on a deeper level, I'm really into crypto as like a human sort of a thing to help humanity. It's really cool that these economies are evolving. And I I don't. It's not the same phenomenon, but one thing I noticed being around is everybody like wonders, why does Dodge have such a high market cap? I always like to talk about Dodge. Is the reason is because all these microeconomies, um, they kind of coalesce, and they use Dodge. Like if you have, and I know there a lot of them are with crypto. If you a lot of times these spontaneous over the counter markets will evolve, and they will use Dodge. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but a couple of years ago. And so you have these kind of user bases that nobody knows about, and people wouldn't even believe. That's the strange thing. Like if you were to go to somebody who was like a crypto detractor type person, there's plenty of them out there on Reddit, those are Reddit trolls I was talking about, and you were to say people actually use this coin, they wouldn't believe you. And it's always wonderful to me to see something like No Limit that has this massive community that you didn't know about. 500 nodes, full nodes running. That's just beautiful. And
It
and
is.
and I don't see her and go, wow, I hope No Limit's the only one like that, so it can have a big cap. What I go is, I hope there's way more coins like this out there that we don't know about, and that will really be a testament. If you were talk about Satoshi's vision, that would be a testament to his vision, the kind of adoption that's enabled by all these different coins that are inspired by his original work. So to me, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I think it's awesome. Bitcoin is great, but all these other coins, they have their place in this world. There's no way these over-the-counter markets that I observed, and also these tip markets that I saw on IRC a long time ago, and of course, Reddit has tip bots now, and Twitter had one for a while. All of these little economies that evolve, they couldn't really happen with Bitcoin at this point. Even its 22-cent transaction fee, which is probably the fee today, is too much for Bitcoin. And even Ethereum the transaction fee can be kind of high. What you
Yes,
need is a sub-cent transaction fee or even less than that.
that's
And
right.
that's what these other coins, they actually offer that. As small as they are and as you know, as a bad words people could use for these coins, they have small transaction fees and their cap is high enough to support these small economies that emerge. And this is a real phenomenon out there, and that there's small economies that sort of evolve out of the use of these coins, and for whatever properties they have. Dodge has super low fees, super fast block times, super small denominations, in that one Dodge is super sub-cent, or
Right.
was last time I checked. These are all, this is a set of properties that make that particular coin useful for this particular economic application, that we can choose. You know, if you're me, you want to believe there's more of it out there than there is, or you can choose to disbelieve it completely, but it's there. I don't really care if you believe in the utility of crypto or not. These economies exist. But yeah, that's the cool thing. That's what No Limit reminds me of when I see a network like that. What you did, what would really be cool is to figure out what you did. Like, how did you do that, man? Was it the videos? Was it your use case?
I
Was it
think
giveaways? What?
no, what it is there's a lot of community participation and there's a lot of belief and patience. A lot of people understand what we're doing. We're coming out with platforms for games that people love. We're spreading that game throughout the world. And the unifying or the common denominator is the crypto, which allows people to come in. And it's been a slow process, but at the same time, nobody seems to leave us, even if all the crypto dropped. And of course, we went along with it. We still have a big, passionate community that believes in what we're going to do and believes in the ultimate goal, which is the organic demand for the coin from the players, which is going to decouple us. I mean, not that we want to be decoupled, but uh, rather than saying decoupled, we'll have a source of new demand for the coin from actual players, and that's very, very close. We've got the credit card integration already. We're just testing it. We've got super satellites, which are small contests to get to the main event, poker contest, and all the fantasy sports. So I just think that there's a lot of people that believe in the platform and believe that we are going to achieve this mass deployment and have many players generating the demand. So I just think that that's it. But it's not just the destination, it's the trip there. And I think it's been a good trip. And I think that the community is very involved. And I think that's what it is. So yeah, it's a good question. How do we get to 500 nodes? And it was very exciting to find out. And I think that is an important part of it. Of course, we're instant transmission, low fees, POS only. So we've luckily avoided the risks of a small coin with a mining component. So I think we did a lot of things right, and I think going forward we'll have a very nice go at it. But thank you for your comments and for all the help. Um, if you were to talk to somebody that's very young right now that is listening this blockchain, I mean, what would be your, like, if somebody says, I want to get into blockchain, I'm very young, I want to be a coder, I mean, what would you tell them? Where would they go study? What would be their major?
Oh, well, okay. So yeah, this is a multi-part question. What you want to have are programming skills, conceptual skills. You need to understand the concepts of blockchain, and then you need the practical experience. Right now, we're still there. We're still in a special moment of blockchain. We're still in that inception period, and the best thing to do if you want to learn, so if you're guiding your life, you're like, what should I do? Go get a computer science degree, learn some math and some cryptography. If you're thinking about college, if you want to do blockchain, these are the most important things: math, cryptography, and coding. And I have my favorite languages that I think are somewhat well suited for blockchain, like C++, and it's not perfectly well suited, but it's good enough for Bitcoin. So I've learned those, but I'm probably, there's probably plenty of people who want to slap me for saying this, but go clone a coin, launch a coin, be an anonymous dev, be one of those guys. The reason is because there's just no, it's almost like you want to be, the next, Bill Gates or whatever. Well, go start a business. Go start an ice cream cone stand so you can understand business. With blockchain, it's really the same way. Go clone a coin and see what it takes to keep that coin alive, to heal the forks, to implement something new on it. Most of the time I'm implementing quantum proof of stake. This is just so I can learn. I'm just a student at heart. I spent most of my, I was doing a postdoc, which is a student's position when I was 40. That's like, I'm a real student. I'm like lived my life that way. And this area where there's money coming into it. So it's kind of easy to make a living here without being, without being formally trained in it still. And you can make it your hobby, and, probably how radios were a long time ago. It's like that type of technology where
Sure.
you can be a student of it, be a pure student, learn every day, and do it on the job. This is just such a beautiful opportunity for people who are into this kind of thing.
It is.
And it's still the same way. You can't, if you go and go take some classes in blockchain, they're not going to teach you as much as you're going to learn after 3 months of launching your own coin. A lot. And when you do that, you get immersed, and you not only understand the technology behind it, the concepts, and you get the programming skills. You actually read a lot of code, and you see how other people handle these small and large challenges that go with coding. But you also get a sense of the community, the very interesting community we have in blockchain still, and you also get a sense of the economics, the markets. You become, it's an interesting thing where you become a trader. You get your first coin, and you're a trader.
It's a school of hard knocks, what you're saying, right? Just
Yes.
get out there and do it, and just, get your feet wet. And very so all right. So if you were to try to predict where blockchain was going to be in 10 years, what would you? I don't want to say price. I don't mean what price. I don't mean that. I mean,
Well,
where is the technology? Like, is it going to be what is the promise that is being made these days going to deliver? Is it going to fall short? Is it going to be way better than we think?
So yeah, here's something that everything I've said so far, this may be counterintuitive that I would say it now, but I think that Bitcoin is going to be the standard bearer, not just in market cap. I expect it to be the biggest market cap coin, but it's also going to be the go-to sort of store of value. And so crypto, and especially Bitcoin. I'm actually not as negative about Bitcoin as it may appear I am, because I think it has some wonderful attributes. It has these properties. It is a trustless way to transfer value. That's what everybody recognizes. Here's something that people don't appreciate enough: is it can't be forged. You can't create a new Bitcoin without doing it in this way that is consistent with the protocol. And because of that, it means that each Bitcoin is genuine. It has some problems with fungibility, okay, but let's not talk about that right now, because that's a nuance. But each Bitcoin can't be forged, and that means that it can serve as a good store of value. And we have situations all across the globe right now. Maybe not in America. We can't appreciate this in America.
No.
Um, but let's imagine we're Saudi royals, but we're not the king, the main
Yeah.
prince or whoever that guy is.
Right, right, right.
What's he doing to his cousins? He's taking their money
Yeah.
away. Why? Because their assets are in Saudi Arabia right now. Okay, so there's two schools of thoughts on the legitimacy. Well, he's a king, I mean, Allah granted him this right. Okay, if you believe Allah granted him that right, then okay. But what if you don't believe Allah granted him the right to take away the property of his relatives? And what if they wanted to not hold their assets in these tangibles inside the borders of Saudi Arabia, where the king or prince or whatever he is has the power to do this? What's a good option here? Well, you could put some cash offshore, maybe, if you can get your cash out of the country, right? What if you could also put it in Bitcoin and it's deniable? So one thing that this King Prince guy has done has taken all of his relatives, a lot of them, over into the desert, into this Ritz Carlton or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sorry if that's the wrong hotel.
MBS, yeah.
And he basically tortured them until they signed over their assets. So their bank accounts over in Switzerland were not safe because they could be signed over. Here's what Bitcoin, and especially anonymous coins, hope to do, is they provide a plausible deniability. So if you believe that the prince doesn't have the right to torture somebody and take their assets away from them, and you believe that people should own their own property, whether or not they're royalty or not, every person has a right to property, then Bitcoin is a really good solution to store your wealth. And while I don't believe that, I don't believe that's going to be the only factor that goes into Bitcoin's value in the future or its utility. I think it's going to be a big one. And imagine, okay, so here's one here. So it's hard not to come up with examples that aren't political. Everything's political though. So if you hate
Okay.
me for my examples, I mean, we got a problem. So look at this guy, Paul Manafort. I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on, but one problem he had, one reason he was able to be ensnared was that he had all his assets and tangibles, watches, art, and stuff like that. It would have been much. I know this may be bad when I'm saying, I'm not giving anybody a blueprint or saying it's good or bad, because it depends on your perspective. If he had his assets in something where it was plausibly deniable, he would not have been susceptible to this. And he's just a good example because he sticks out. He's in the news and I know about it. But there are plenty of people like the royalty in Saudi Arabia and other people we don't know about in other countries who have tangibles, who would be better served to keep those tangibles not in bank accounts that they could sign over, but in assets that are plausibly deniable.
Well, even if it doesn't have to be, those extreme situations, even under very normal circumstances, like let's say somebody that has achieved a tremendous amount of wealth to a certain point, and I like to compare. I like to say, well, what would you rather have? Let's say you're worth $1 billion, and you've got 10 shopping centers and hundreds of employees. That would be A, and B would be a flash drive where you could just say, okay, I'll sell my assets to somebody else. I'm done. Now I want to carry my $1 billion in a flash drive and just, store it there. So just from that point of view, I mean, look, you go from this massive infrastructure where you need an army of people and to manage your investment. Now you go to basically one flash drive.
Yeah, I mean, you can store $1 billion worth of Bitcoin on a single microdot. You know what a microdot is? It's like something they paint on your car that each set of microdots is a unique identification number. So it's a microscopic particle. Well, yes, it's smaller than the eye can see for sure. Microscopic particle that can contain enough information for a Bitcoin seed to hold billions. How are they going to find that? You know, so it's like a Swiss number to count, and even if you're the most law-abiding citizen on the planet, which
We
I
all are.
suggest being, as law-abiding as you can possibly be in today's age, where there's a lot of laws and it's hard to keep track, and even the law understands it's hard to keep track. That's why when somebody approaches the SEC and says, "We think we're a security," the SEC doesn't throw them in jail. They say, "Yeah, we thank you for trying to rectify this situation." The best you can do is hope to abide by the law. Sometimes you can't, but we hope all to be that way. Even if you are that way, it's really powerful to have potentially, not everybody can have $1 billion, but to have $1 billion on an asset that can be stored on a submicroscopic particle that can be hidden from pretty much any sort of search. I mean, that's a really, really extreme example of the capabilities of the technology. But even if you store it on, even if you put it on some metal or metal's they have those crypto steels or something that you can slide the little numbers in. If you can put it on metal, you can hide that pretty much anywhere. You name it. I could open up my monitor here and put it inside the casing for one of these little assemblies, and or I could stamp it into that casing. I'm not saying the reason I chose that example. If you're out there, I did not stamp any keys in my casing. Don't tear up my monitors. They're not there.
Don't go looking for
Don't
James's
look at.
monitors.
That's how I think. So you're not going to find them. So anyway, but you can hide it like that.
Well, look, even if it's not intended to be hidden, because let's face it, I mean, as anonymous as it can be, the blockchain is really a ledger, right? I mean, at some point,
Yes.
if people really want to connect you to the money, somehow they will. I'm not talking about that. I'm just
Yes, of
talking about
course.
the convenience, the amazingness. I mean, people love gold. Like there's all these gold bugs, but what are you going to do? Carry around, gold bars? You can't do that.
I don't think gold bugs in general own any gold. What they probably, because who can store gold at their house?
Right.
They own some certificate that says they
Certificates.
have gold. I don't think
There's people that love storing silver, and they have these massive
yeah.
amounts, and then when it's time to move them, it's like a problem. So yeah, I mean, blockchain has really just come to change the world. And I mean, I don't want to keep you here all night. I know that's when you work. That's when I got and we've had these calls many times. I had the luck that you were open to record this. This is going to be very interesting for a lot of people, I believe. How would you want to paraphrase this call? I mean, how would you want to basically say, well, just like a final thought on what we've been talking about, our relationship, blockchain, anything you want to add to this wonderful conversation that I've been having with you?
Yeah, I guess I can just say, I think crypto in general has a great future. I think, not only will Bitcoin be the standard bearer, there's going to be a lot of technology. Blockchain has tremendous use cases in digital identity. I didn't even get to talk about that. I think that's a great use case. I think even supply chain, people don't actually realize how that's probably going to be transformed, although there are people that don't believe that can be possible right now. You'll see, guys, I'm telling you. I don't own any supply chain coins actually myself, because I think we're too far ahead of it. Why own it now? Because it's not going to get adopted for a while. And also in other things that, there's an article in CoinDesk that I still need to read. My wife read, and she gave me the paraphrase. But the summary, but it's on water rights management, the tokenization of water rights management.
Mhm.
And And blockchain offers these advantages. Public blockchains with tokens that are transferable in a free type of way offers advantages of record keeping that that other forms can't. Other forms of record keeping can't duplicate. Even if you have a centralized record keeping facility down at City Hall, it's not going to be as efficient as blockchain for
True.
information retrieval. And you can have record keeping on the blockchain that is, you know, private as well, and just as private as down at City Hall. Way more private than City Hall. So this is just a few applications. Coins are going to proliferate. You know, let them. The more coins, the better. Let it rain coins. I don't care. I don't think my Bitcoin's going to go down because somebody invented, you know, Doorcoin or something.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. My life isn't going to be any worse because of Doorcoin. Sorry. So, but I think there's going to be a lot of coins and a lot of use cases, and it's going to be exciting to just see how it helps humanity. You know, I'm a big believer that blockchain helps humanity.
And we all do. And I wanted to touch on one more thing, because you mentioned to me that part of what you do, kind of your hobby, is to look for, you know, the new coins, and you take shot at, you know, super micro cap coins, and that's how you found us.
Yeah.
And you seem to have a very incredible track record in terms of picking, you know, early coins and then they pop. I mean, if somebody wanted to do that, what's the system? I mean, what do? You just go and look for all the new coins that are coming out? What is it that you look for?
I stumble on coins, and my biggest failing in not finding new coins is not looking deeper. And you will, if I miss coins, it's because I heard about a coin and somebody tried to tell me about a coin, and I was like, well, that's a silly name. You know, why would I look at that? But if I can get, if there's a really good coin and I can get that piece of key information, you know, for No Limit Coin, it was that you were not, you were actually taking notes.
I
And whenever
remember that.
some guy from Breakout was talking about blockchain, I was like, wow, you know, who's this dev who's taking notes? You know, aren't devs supposed to be prima donna know-it-alls like me? And then when I heard that, I was like, holy smokes, I'm just going to buy a lot of this. And it was a really, it actually turned out to be a really smart buy.
Taking notes.
I've never sold any No Limit Coin. I didn't have to, but it has pumped. Anybody can look at the charts. I bought it like when it was on CCX, and it pumped like crazy a couple of times. So it was a really good pick, and it's still around, and it's super viable project. And, you know, I think it has a bright future. Whether or not the cap goes up, you know, it doesn't matter. It's a coin that's helping to the, you know, it's a use case and people are using it. I mean, it's a cool coin. But coins that go up, you know, basically, if you understand the technology, if you really, if your approach is, I'm just going to trade and I don't care what the coins are going to do, what you're going to be is a day trader, and you're going to probably lose more than you win. And if you have to make that leap of faith, you have to say blockchain is useful. You know, you got to embrace that concept. If you just are there to make a quick buck, you're going to be lucky if you do. There are lucky people. If you say to yourself, blockchain is useful, now what? What is, you know, what is the use? What are the problems? What problems can blockchain solve? What does it have, you know, that needs solving? Where, and you have your antennas up for any coin that addresses any of these things that you identify, and you research that coin, and you got to look and see if it's a legitimate project, if the approach makes sense technically. You know, there's a lot of things that you have to do your background research. If everything lines up and all your research lines up like it did for No Limit Coin, for me, you know, that was not the only coin I got into, then you're probably going to have more wins than losses. And you will end up in a situation where you hold through these ginormous bumps because you did not feel the pressure to sell. It's good and bad, but, you know, but you're going to have plenty of wins that way. So it requires not just being a cynical, I'm like a trader and I'm just going to take money from this economy. I mean, you might do well if you're a good trader, you know, if you have discipline and everything, but you're going to do a lot better if you go ahead and embrace the fact that blockchain is useful technology and that you're going to learn what its challenges are and what challenges it can solve, and then look for those use cases in your coins. That's how you get the big wins.
So you still go out there, you look at the brand new coins coming into the market, you study them, and you look for a good story. You still do that.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, that's like ingrained in my behavior. I mean, it's just, I kind of love it, you know. I mean, I get excited when I read a nice white paper. Right now I would love to say what I'm buying right now, but I'm going to finish buying it before I say anything. And I may never say anything. But I've read one of the most beautiful, spectacular white papers ever. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I could give your audience, if they're on the ball, maybe I could give them some hints. Okay, guys, go out there and look for a coin.
All right, give me some
That,
crypto, you know.
this is an encrypted message.
Okay.
Okay, and I could be dead ass wrong.
Well,
And so go look for a coin that is taking a brand new, fresh approach to DApps, that is taking two established technologies and merging them into a brand new formalization of a blockchain consensus. I
whoa.
can't do any better than that. But if
Wow.
people are thinking and looking, they'll find this coin and they'll be buying it with me. And anyway, I'll tell you what it is. Just don't go tell everybody, because
Hey, you get this thing's gonna, okay, go for it. It's only gonna be seen
after, I
by,
mean, no, after the call, I'm not going to say
oh,
right here what this is.
okay.
But if you, but see, somebody who is looking around and sees a project like this, and if they have that technical knowledge and they've really put their mind to it, it will stick out to them. These type of coins will jump out to them like chess moves to a chess master. It will be an obvious play, you know, like, wow, that's totally an obvious buy. And it's just a matter of picking it up and waiting. And, you know, in my case, waiting too long. But typically, you know, if you have an understanding of blockchain technology, pretty deep understanding, and you have patience and discipline, man, you're going to have some good wins. You're going to have some really nice wins.
All right, so I'm gonna have to, man, people are gonna start calling me and telling me, hey, what's that coin he was talking about? So, all right, I'm gonna let you go, because I don't know how long this has gone. I don't know where the clock is, but I'm sure it's been more than, 30 minutes or whatever. I really want to thank you for this. It's been special. It's probably more than I expected, and I hope the people that watch this will go through the whole thing. Some will, and they'll realize, how deep a thinker you are, and how lucky we are that you're on our team, and that you've helped us, and you're a big holder. So it's great to have you on our team. And Stealth is a very interesting project. I suggest anybody check it out. And that coin you just gave us is going to make people go into a mad scramble to try to figure out what that is. So I'm going to maybe poke around and try to guess what it is. But thank you for your comments also on No Limit Coin. And have a good rest of the evening.
You too, Rafael. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Bye, James.
Bye.
Talk to you later.